Hi, I'm Brigham Larson with Brigham Larson Pianos, and the title of this video is Rethinking Chinese Manufacture, which I have personally, as a technician that started in 1995, really undergone a dramatic 180-degree conversion myself. I believed prior to 2010, when I first came across Hailun, that there was maybe something wrong with the Chinese, or I don't know, because every piano that I had come across that was manufactured in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s was mediocre at best, and frankly most were subpar. And I still hear that from time to time coming from other piano technicians, some colleagues of mine, that are absolutely certain that Chinese pianos are something to avoid. But they're really basing that on old information. Post 2005 and especially post 2010, it is a dramatically different story. So the question is why? How did the Chinese make that change? Why am I such a heart and soul convert to these pianos in particular? Now, I'll kind of hedge slightly in saying that I would say that most piano manufacturers today out of China are reasonable, good, kind of in that okay category, but there are a few that are fantastic, and I would say Hailun is leading the way. So the question is, how did that happen? I'm going to start by just talking about some other conversations that I've had. I've actually had this conversation with many people who come into the store and are looking at Hailun in particular. And one particularly interesting conversation that I had was with a guy who was an astronomy professor who had lots of experience purchasing for the university lenses and telescopes. And he said that the exact same thing had happened in the optical industry, in optical for astronomy. He said that prior to 2005, the only really good lenses that you could get were from and it's interesting, the players here, the companies, or the countries rather, were Japan, Switzerland, and Germany. Other than that, other than manufacturers from those countries, you really weren't able to get high quality lenses. And I find that interesting because of the nationalities of those optical product manufacturers. Switzerland really isn't in the industry, in the piano industry, but of course Germany and Japan are in the piano industry in a big way, and they also have a reputation for producing, particularly Germany, top quality pianos. And then he went on to say, but post 2005, suddenly there appeared on the market these lenses coming out of China that were virtually indistinguishable from a quality standpoint from these German and Japanese and Swiss lenses, but they were a tiny fraction of the price. And so it's the same countries involved, and it's the same timeline as the piano industry. That's why I tell that story, because it's so well related. I've had that conversation with a number of other people in other industry, the computer industry, and several other industry people that I've talked to that say, yeah, I'm the COO of my company or whatever, I'm in China once a month, and I've seen that transformation. And I think anybody that has been to China, and that particularly has been to China throughout this transformation, has seen China, the growth of Chinese manufacturing, just absolutely explode in not only quantity but quality, if they want, as well as quantity. Okay, so specifically, how has Hailun done it? I'll start by saying that Hailun is not what's called a stencil piano. That's a big deal. Lots of manufacturers, particularly in China, but this was actually something that American manufacturers were doing long before Chinese manufacturers. I mean, like back to the 1800s. A manufacturer would create a piano, a generic piano, and then they would just sell it to whoever wanted to buy it, and they would put whatever name was on it. So there'd be essentially 10 different manufacturers or named pianos. It was by one different manufacturer or one individual manufacturer. And so what you essentially have is 10 identical pianos with different names on them. And what has always been the case, going back from when this practice started, literally more than 100 years ago, to today, is that pianos that have the name of the manufacturer, like Steinway or like Grotrian or Petrov, these are the highest quality pianos that have the name of the manufacturer. That's the name of the piano. And conversely, pianos that are stenciled on, that the label is stenciled on, will always be the low quality pianos. So this is no exception. This is his name. This is his first name. His given name is Hailun. His last name or his family name is Chen. So this is his baby. He's been in the industry for many decades, and he is a really, really smart guy, and cares passionately about the quality of this piano. So he's poured his heart and soul into this piano, and the way he's done it, the way he's created such a high quality piano is he's recognized what the strengths are of the East, in China, what his strengths are, and he's married them with the strengths of the West. So, namely, the strengths of the West are design, vision, the blueprints, creating, okay, what kinds of materials are we going to use? What kinds of woods? What kinds of felts? What's the overall tone we're going for? What's the overall touch that we're going for? The visionary creation of the piano. Then you also have quality control. That is a strength of the West, and he's married that with the strength of the East, which is efficiency. Taking those plans that the innovation, the brain power of the West, combining it with the manufacturer might of the East. And just as a quick kind of comparison, the largest Western manufacturer is in Prague. It's Petrov, which produces about 1,500 units a year. Whereas in China, I don't think a 1,500 unit a year manufacturer would even be able to stay in business in the piano industry. The smallest ones are way bigger than that. Hailun is somewhere in the 40 to 50,000 unit a year range, and then there are others like Pearl River that do double or more that from a unit standpoint. And then so it's watch my videos. I did a factory tour a few years ago, and I made a number of videos where I outline that. It's actually a surprisingly cutting edge manufacturing facility. I don't know what I was expecting. I was not expecting, with the exception of air conditioning, I was not expecting such a highly polished, efficient, really modern manufacturing facility where everything is well thought out and laid out for maximum precision and efficiency. Okay, then what I'll also mention is how China has done it, and particularly Hailun, is the dissemination of three things, how the world has changed since pianos were manufactured in the past. The first one is information. Information used to be, trade secrets were a big thing. Trade secrets, it's really kind of hard to keep everything under wraps, and frankly, information is out there for anyone to access and use. So you have information. You have computerization, where in the past everything was kind of I shouldn't even say kind of, everything was completely hand-built. And so going from blueprints to realizing those blueprints in an actual piano product, there was a lot of kind of give and take, and well, this is handwork and it's not precision. But what I saw in the Hailun factory and one of my videos, actually a lot of the videos, you see the machines, the robots doing a lot of the work. I was surprised at how much work that the robots actually do. As one example, and check out the video, but as one example, this is a Hailun 218 the 7'2", designed by Stephen Polello, a Westerner, who's, in my opinion, the best piano designer in the world that I've ever seen. The guy, I've visited his shop in France, and he is unbelievable. Anyway, the bridge pins. The bridge pins are about an inch long, maybe slightly longer, and the machine was inserting them with precision into the bridge at about 1 a second, or maybe slightly faster. And you can watch that in the video. Just pushing them all in. And not only was it doing it that fast, and of course with speed is efficiency, but they were also doing it with absolute perfection. So what we're talking about with these kinds of robots is realizing the designs to within fractions of thousandths of an inch, whereas of course a human, in spite of doing something for 30 years, does not have tolerances that are to the thousandths of an inch. And that's just one example. It's all over the place in the Hailun factory. Then you also have globalization. That's also another really, really big deal, a real game changer in many industries, and the piano industry is no exception. So piano manufacturers used to be really confined to their regional locale to draw on resources. In pianos, you've got many different types of wood. You've got felts, you've got leather, you've got different types of metal, you've got finishing products and gluing products and lots and lots of other components that all come together to create a piano. And when you're confined to your region for cost purposes and other reasons, then you're really kind of limited as to what you can create. But what has exploded, well, it was well underway prior to 2005, but what has really exploded and it hit the piano industry in a big way in about the early 2000s is the globalization of all of these materials. So essentially the world became the supermarket. So you can draw on the very best felts from this area, the very best hammers from that area, the very best brass or steel strings, or the best blues, or whatever it is, from wherever it is in the world, and it's just as cheap to ship in all of these materials that are the best in the world to your to your manufacturing facility as it is to try and find them locally. So you have information, you have computerization, you have globalization. I touched on it briefly a few minutes ago, also talking about quality control. That's another thing that the West does so well. So that's something that Mr. Chen has implemented with this giant manufacturing facility. Quality control, of course, is a major concern, and so what the Hailun distributor does is it has people living there, Westerners that are piano technicians that are living there in China, that are going in day by day and ensuring that at every step of the process, everything is realized exactly as it's supposed to be. So just to emphasize, you've got the marriage of the East and the West, the design and the quality control with efficiency, and that's how you get high quality with reasonable prices. So I'll say this just to kind of re-emphasize, and then that'll be the end of the video. Manufacturing in Germany, of course, or the United States, of course, quality is paramount, and quality products are, of course, produced. Really, any pianos coming out of Germany are going to be super high quality. But from a cost standpoint, you've got dramatically different wages between Germany and China. You've got unions, you have regulations, and then of course you have the prestige of the name, which further drives up the price. In China, prior to what Mr. Chen has brought to the table, again, that marriage of the East and West, you had plenty of people that were looking for jobs, but the Western know-how wasn't there. So what you had coming out of China, and what I had experienced as a technician of pianos that were manufactured in the 80s or 90s, were these pianos that were very inexpensive, but they were essentially, a lot of them were junk. They were just, I just wanted my customers, when I tuned those pianos, please just throw these pianos away. Because they didn't have that Western know-how, that Western quality control. So when you combine the two, what you get is a very, very high instrument, high quality instrument for a very, very reasonable price. And that is Hailun.